Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Naperville Park District Board of Commissioners. It is Thursday, August 22nd, 2019. If everyone can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we do roll call, I'd like to welcome our guests here. Thank you for being with us. I assume most of you are here to talk about Millennium Park. We did move that to the front of our agenda as far as discussion items go, out of respect for your time. But we do have some other business that we have to procedurally take care of prior to that, so we'll move through that. And then again, we did move your item to the top of our list. So, with that being said, Bridget, can you please take the roll?
President Janet?
Here.
Vice President King? Absent. Commissioner Carlson?
Yes, here.
Commissioner Egan? Commissioner McBroom?
Here.
Commissioner Riley?
Here.
Commissioner Todd?
Here.
Okay, first item is matters from the public. Bridget, is there anyone from the public here to speak on a non-agenda or non-discussion agenda item? Okay, then we will move on to the monthly treasurer's report.
Move to approve the June 2019 Treasurer's Report.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Bridget, please take the roll.
Vice President King?
Yes.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner McBroom?
Yes.
Commissioner Riley?
Yes.
President Janet?
Yes. Okay, next we will move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda tonight? Okay, Bridget, can you please read the items on the consent agenda in order?
Item 4.1, approve July 2019 disbursements in the amount of $1,825,940.50. 4.2, approve July 2019 disbursements made to the Bank of America Purchasing Card Program in the amount of $239,208.58. 4.3, approve July 2019 disbursements made to the FinTech Electronic Payment System in the amount of $3,461.45. 4.4, approve July 2019 customer refunds in the amount of $6,628.10. 4.5, approve July 11, 2019 regular meeting minutes. 4.6, approve July 11, 2019 executive session closed meeting minutes. 4.7, authorize the executive director to issue a purchase order to Landscape Structures in the amount of $78,284 for challenge course and play equipment for Wolf's Crossing Community Park. 4.8, authorize the executive director to issue a purchase order to BCI Bird Company, LLC, in the amount of $130,709.65 for play equipment for Wolf's Crossing Community Park. 4.9, authorize the executive director to issue a purchase order to Musco Sports Lighting, LLC, in the amount of $679,450 for the supply of parking lot, site, and sports lighting equipment and fixtures for Wolf's Crossing Community Park. 4.10, award the contract for 2019 Wyoming Creek Parks Detention Pond Dredging Project to Global Infrastructure LLC in the amount of $30,685. 4.11, approve the revised Naperville Park District Personnel Policy Appendix C Policy Manuals and at-will employment acknowledgement. 4.12, approve the purchase of the 2019 Toro 5010 hybrid fairway mower from Grinders Inc. in the amount of $59,551.45. 4.13, approve the purchase of the 2019 Kubota R530R43 articulated loader from Burris Equipment for $62,581.70. Finally, 4.14, award the contract for the Springbrook Golf Course Maintenance Building Renovation Project to Integral Construction Inc. in the amount of $209,811.
Move to approve consent agenda items 4.1 through 4.14.
Second.
Yes.
President Gannon?
Yes. No.
Move to accept.
Move to accept the consent agenda?
No, we did accept.
We accepted it in reverse.
Approve it.
This one's approved this time.
The first one should have been accepted, this one's approving it.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? This is voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. We have no unfinished business, so we will move forward to our discussion items. And as stated previously, we're going to move, we're calling item 6.0, the Buttonwood Park discussion, up to the top of the list. Executive Director McGurry, do you have any comments, or are we good to go? Okay. All right, so if anyone wishes to speak on this topic, you'll have 3 minutes. You'll have 3 minutes if you can just please come up to the front and say your name and your address, and then we'll start the time. A couple of you are pretty much going to say the same thing. You can decide who's going to be a spokesperson, or if everyone wants to speak, that's totally up to you. Who would like to lead us off? Please.
It's been confusing because I keep doing Bridget and then I get nervous, but it's not me. My name is Bridget McKernan. I live at 1185 Banyan Court. I'm here today to talk about Buttonwood Park. Just over 2 months ago, after a period of very heavy rains, we noticed that the grassy area in our beloved park was not being mowed. So nearly 2 weeks had passed and I waited until a few consecutive clear and sunny days occurred. They did. And I called the Park District to see if maybe they were a little bit behind in mowing. It was then that I learned about the Park Meadows project and that Buttonwood was slotted to be a part of it. There were no letters sent, no signs were posted, and so I educated myself on the details by digging through the Park District website. My neighbors and I had many questions. Via email, I was told that the detention basin at Buttonwood Park was, quote, chosen by staff to convert to meadow due to the very wet nature of the park and the belief that the area is not usable most of the year because of that. The Park Meadows project overview states that the areas selected for conversion are wet and are not used for recreation. We have lived in our current home for 12 years. The rains we have seen this year have certainly been extreme. But overall, the detention area has really performed as designed. This year was a bit different, a little more soggy, so we contacted the good folks at Public Works to get their opinion. They were very responsive, and they traced our drains using their impressive TV technology. They uncovered a major blockage, and they resolved it. Wonderful, I thought. There were 2 reasons given why Buttonwood was chosen to be part of the Park Meadows project. The wet nature of the detention area, which was improved by Public Works, and the belief that the area is not usable most of the year because of that. I can assure you that the field area of Buttonwood Park is an epicenter of active recreation. Numerous pickup games of baseball, kickball, volleyball, freeze tag can be seen taken all over the place on that turf. We have an annual Easter egg hunt. We have Daddy and Donut picnics on Saturday. Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, they host their meetings there. There have even been concerts at the park at Buttonwood filled with hundreds of people sitting in lawn chairs in the exact same area that's planned to be removed. I recently noticed that 2 areas were sprayed, causing the turf to quickly die. Confirming what that meant with an email to Park District, I was so disappointed to learn that the decision was to move forward, so that's why I'm here. Please, don't allow the recreational space of Buttonwood Park to be removed. There is a precedence for dual-use lands in Naperville. Prairie, tall grass, those are all good examples of detention areas also serving as recreational areas. We appreciate all that the Park District does to improve our community's environment, but this change is unwanted and it'll negatively impact many Naperville residents. Please reconsider Buttonwood Park's inclusion in the Park Meadows project. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Stuart Katz, and I live at 750 Buttonwood Circle, which is kitty corner from the park. I don't have anything particular substantive to add to Bridget's comments per se, but I do, I guess, have some questions that I'm hoping someone might be able to answer for me, whether it's here or in another forum, or just the purpose of the project, because I don't think it's been particularly well communicated to the community. And I suppose if the folks want to come to the park perhaps more than just a couple of times to see what it looks like, it's dry right now, right? It's rained over the last couple of weeks. We've had some pretty decent storms, and there's plenty of activity going on there, and I certainly wonder about some of the negatives that have gone through email, like rodents, bugs, etc. And I'm wondering how that's going to be mitigated. And also, I suppose, the impact on my own property as well as my neighbors, because as these plants grow, they pollinate, they spread, and it ends up on my lawn, having to deal with whatever is growing in the park and growing on my lawn as well as my neighbors. So if there's someone here that can raise their hand, maybe I can contact you after, or you can contact me. I'd like to know how I pick up this conversation.
We'll have somebody contact you.
I'm sorry?
We'll have somebody contact you.
Who would that someone be, right?
Either myself or Kevin Finnegan or Eric Schutz, one of the three of us.
All right. I appreciate knowing that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Not in favor of this.
Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to discuss this issue. My name is Beth Busmagen, and I live at 759 Thornapple Drive. When we moved into our house approximately 10 and a half years ago, one of the major reasons that we bought our house was because it was within walking distance to that park. My kids were little, I had nowhere else to go, I didn't know anybody in the area, and the park was an excellent way to meet people. My kids have played there. 2 of my children are old enough to go there by themselves. At any given moment in time, you will find kids hanging hammocks from the trees when they were there. You will find children playing. The fact that you are using lack of recreation as a reason to base your decision shows that you have never been to our playground on a Saturday morning when the kids are out with their parents having donuts. This is an epicenter of our community, just as Bridget just said. There are emotional ties, and that is the reason why we and my husband bought our house. And I think it is very disappointing that you can sit there using our tax money to pay for this when we clearly do not want it. Half the fun of the rain is for my kids and I to say, how high is the park going to get? How high is that water going to get? Are we going to see ducks in it? Are people going to try to kayak in it this year? There's things, emotional ties, and things that our children enjoy, that we enjoy sharing with them. The people who clearly don't live there are willing to take away from us. It has not bothered anybody, well, that I've been there 10.5 years, enough to say anything about it. Yet, you can see that we have a presence here of people who are willing to speak, that we don't want it taken away. I hope you take that into consideration, and if you do decide to move forward with this against our wishes, I hope you figure out how much of our tax dollars are going towards it, and you give us all the refund, because we don't want it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jamie Jones. I live at 1186 Banyan Court, where I've lived for the last 15 years. And I did contact the Park District when I found that I contacted you, Mr. McGurry, to find out why this decision was being made, the basis of the decision. And I got very little in the way of information back, other than being told that the decision had been made. It had been based on, quote, data that had been collected by your office regarding the amount of time the park space was in use. I asked for information about how this data was collected, if I could see the data. And that's when the responses from your office stopped. Because as Ms. Busmagen said, I don't believe that anybody from your office has actually conducted any sort of survey of the park to see when it is in use. Because I can tell you that it is in use constantly. My 4 kids are there constantly. My son and his friends play pickup football games there constantly. enough teenage kids trying to get in my basement and play video games. What I want them to do is go outside and run and play, and that is the only space in our neighborhood where they can just run and play. And I cannot understand why this decision is being made, other than it must be a financial reason. And even then, I can't quite get my head around that, because how much more could it possibly cost the Park District to mow that additional space? You have to come out anyway and mow all of the area around the curbage and around the playground itself. So how much money are we actually talking about? That's another question that we asked, and we haven't gotten an answer to that question. So if you want to make this decision that's going to be to the detriment of neighbors, taxpayers in this community, I would at least like some more transparency. I would have appreciated some more notice. I certainly would have appreciated notice before you all came out and sprayed whatever chemical you sprayed on that grass that caused it to die in a matter of minutes. By the way, my kids and my dog were in that area right after it was sprayed, and then the ropes were immediately taken down. And I just cannot understand the lack of transparency and the lack of any engagement with the community. Thank you.
My family and I have lived there for 19 years. One of the reasons we moved into Naperville was it was child friendly. It even boasted a play station at the Naperville post office. I was floored when I moved in and saw that. This decision to put Buttonwood Park in the Park Meadows, using it as a Park Meadows agenda, would not fit in well with what you boast Naperville to be. It is a park that is part of the fabric of Buttonwood, countryside, Westwood, including Maywatt's people, and people as far over by Rickard come to the park. If you ever saw the park, morning, noon, and night, especially in the summertime, and the traffic, the amount of cars that park all up and down to get to the park, you would not make this decision. This has been a meeting place for the community. This has been a place where little children play in the morning. This has been a place where kids after school play with whoever is picking them up. This has been a place where early evening, even the teenagers are there. This is also a place where adults walk their animals. By adding natural grasses and by adding the natural grasses and native plants to the area, you are also harming not only you are harming all of Buttonwood itself as well as countryside, because you're adding in insects and animals that will naturally come to its areas. And Buttonwood Park does not have the acreage to sustain that, which will mean the insects and the other unsavory animals will come to our lawns, such as more raccoons, such as coyotes, such as other things that will affect our children and us. Not to count the amount of insects this will bring on to the area, because you are doing this in an area that doesn't have the acreage for this. That it will affect every single house in the community because of this. Not to count as well the weeds, because you're adding native grasses to the area, we're going to get tons and tons of weeds. And then you're going to wonder why the trees that you have so beautifully planted on the parkways are not doing as well. You are going to totally change the neighborhood from adding these native grasses. I agree with Bridget and with everyone else who has spoken here. This has always been a community. You think Buttonwood is just a small subdivision, but it has been the meeting place for the whole area, all the way down to Maywatt's and further. It is at a crossroads, and there are no other parks where people play as much, I would bet, other than maybe downtown, than on Buttonwood Park. And for this reason, I urge you to not do this. You will destroy the fabric of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Sounds as if I'm the veteran in this group that lived on Buttonwood Circle for 30 years. We moved in when my son was
Please
5.
say your name and your
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, Jean Tartaglione. I live at 833 Buttonwood Circle. So the park is right behind my home. We survived the 96 flood when the Park District flooded that whole area and came into our basements. They put all that money in to ease the flooding problem, which we were very appreciative of. But that park, and I agree, and I know I'm repeating myself, was the mainstay of when my kids were growing up, because they could walk out my back door and go through that park to the playground, and I never had to worry about them being on the street, which can be a little detrimental at times with kids just getting their driver's license for the first time. I'm very against having the weed or the flower idea. I'm very, very disappointed that I wasn't even given a letter, and I live on the park. The other thing that I'm really, really concerned about is this spring, and I know we had a really wet spring, but the maintenance on our park each year has dipped a little. It hasn't been as well maintained as when we moved in 30 years ago. The trees are bigger. I take care of the tree on the Park District behind my house. I trim it. I clean up all the mess around it. I pick up all the sticks. They come and mow and they'll weed whack or whatever they do, but that's pretty much it. So I'm really skeptical on how well the park meadow idea is going to be maintained as well. There is a lot of trash sometimes, even though there's garbage cans out there. Not everybody always picks things up. And I'm just thinking how much stuff is going to get stuck in tall grasses, and that's where the drains are. So I'm against it, and I'm hoping that the transparency is there because it has been really discouraging. I didn't find out about this until other people told me, and then I canvassed the neighborhood. I also went to every other single park that the Park Meadows project is. Our park does not generate any revenue with ball fields or anything either. And it seemed that there were a few that had a ball diamond on it, but they were very, very wide open park areas that didn't have, seemed to me, as much of an impact on the people's yards around it. We are right on the park. So thank you for your time. I hope you don't do it.
Hi, my name is Steve Mickelson, and my address is 808 Buttonwood. And I'm kind of speaking impromptu, and I'm going to echo a lot of what you've already heard. But I think you're all very well-meaning individuals, and you're trying to solve a problem. I want to thank Ray McGurry for being responsive to my questions over the last day or two, because I've been kind of upset about it. But kind of like everyone else has said, so my house is completely in front of this park. And this park is the very first thing I see every morning when I back out of my driveway. And it's the last thing I see at night when I go into my house. And I'm really a witness to everything that people have said so far. This park's really heavily used. It is just filled with families. It's filled with kids. My kids are grown now, but when my kids were growing up, my son and I would play baseball over there. We would fly frisbees. We would do all the things. And we would always have these concerts. Occasionally, not always, but there were occasional concerts. And I think what you're hearing is just a real concern that the character of this park will change. And I know that you've tried to minimize the grass area, but when you really look at it, it takes away from the real kind of critical core of the park. And I think partly because Buttonwood maybe doesn't have an association, I believe, we're sometimes not easy to engage with. But I think we all feel frustrated to get a letter where something comes out kind of like a fait accompli, and you feel like, wow, the decision's been made, now it's up to me to scramble to react to it or to figure out how to react to it. And I don't think we necessarily have a good solution always, but we would just ask you all to try to consider what it feels like when you buy a house and you know a neighborhood and everything, and you're just trying to keep it the same, and then all of a sudden people are coming in and saying, hey, we're going to change it. So, you know, I'm personally preferring that you don't make this happen. I think a lot of us have lived, like I've lived here 27 years, that grass has always been a little damp. You know, when I played baseball 20 years ago with my kids, sometimes we needed to avoid a muddy spot. But, you know, hey, it's what life's about, and we always get a kick out of watching the park get full of water and they going away. So I appreciate the chance to talk to you guys.
Hi, my name is Danny Tracy. I live at 836 Buttonwood Circle, right across from Mrs. Tartaglione. I want to ask a question first before I go through with what I've written. I'm not as good as speakers as everyone else, so I have everything on my phone.
This is not a town hall meeting.
No, I just want to ask a question. One question.
This is not really a question and answer session. We're giving you the opportunity to
Yeah. All right. Well, then, it's my understanding that this park is an MDB. If I'm wrong, please correct me. MDB is a multi-use detention basin. If anybody wants to look that up after, that's fine. I'm just going to read notes that I wrote down. I don't know if anybody in our community has ever called the city to complain about the park being soggy. I'm sure some of us have called, I think in the 13 years that I've lived here, maybe twice I called the city to mention that the park was still full of water 2 days after a heavy rain, which is not right. An MDB is built to slowly drain after it fills up after a heavy rain, and if it doesn't drain, there's something wrong. I think you all should know that. If you don't, do some research. Anyway, this year has been the second wettest spring since area records have been kept dating back to 1871. Average spring rainfall, according to the Chicago National Weather Service office, which is at O'Hare Airport, which I worked at for 10 years, until I retired 2 years ago. The average spring rainfall is 9.71 inches. This spring we had a measured total of 16.36 inches at that location, which is 168% normal. Naperville's not Chicago here, but we're pretty darn close. As for temperature, a little bit closer, the Aurora Airport, the March average temperature was 33.45 degrees, 38 being the average normal March temperature. The April average was 48.1, normal is 50. The May average was 56.4, normal is 61. In other words, we were anywhere from 2 to 4.5 degrees below normal for 3 months during a period of heavier than normal rainfall. What does that mean? Well, as air cools, the ability to hold moisture diminishes. And we all know that. Combined with the cool spring temperatures with record rainfall, you're going to get a lot of soggy soil. I couldn't mow parts of my backyard for several weeks. I'd use a weed whacker. My neighbor couldn't mow practically their entire backyard for almost a month. But I think we all dealt with it. The farmers had a very difficult planting season. Corn was barely knee-high by the 4th of July in many fields. In some fields it wasn't even probably ankle-high. As for personal experience, what do? You deal with it. Well, Buttonwood Park also had to work overtime to stem the flow of stormwater runoff. Even on Memorial Day, we were hit with a deluge that left many streets flooded for a while.
Your time is up. Can you wrap up?
All right. Well, the park did its job. Unfortunately, the damage has been done. Dead vegetation and mud will not evaporate water as well as grass will. Hands down, it just doesn't. And what happens to weeds and wildflowers when they die? They become dead vegetation. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sorry I went over.
your name and address.
Right, I'm John Ambrosino at 804 South River Road. I just appreciate all of you guys taking some time, and you gave us a lot more time than you probably typically do, and we appreciate it. I've been in touch with Ray. I talked to Dick Dublinski, and he had tried to work with us, trying to figure out how can we get rid of some of the water. And I think you guys care about our park. I think everybody here has shown that they care. Hopefully we can all work together for a solution. And that's pretty much all I want to say. Just thank you guys for giving us that opportunity.
Thank you. So again, thank you to all those that spoke. If everyone that spoke, if you can make sure that Bridget, this Bridget, not that Bridget, has all of your contact information, your name and address, so that if we need to follow up with you, we're able to do that. And Ray or Kevin, did you guys have anything you'd like to?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, and I apologize. Behind your name again, ma'am?
Jamie Jones.
Okay, so Jamie, I don't ever remember getting an email from you, but I'll go back and take a look, and I will check. If I said anything that had to do with lack of recreation, then that's my fault. So I will check the email that I sent or received from you. I don't ever remember speaking about anything that has to do with recreation, because this has absolutely zero to do with anything as far as the perception that the Park District has about lack of recreation, or that we didn't see people playing out there. Zero to do with that.
Your project manager, Peggy Grumsky,
Right,
she's
so
the one
to
that
be
said that.
clear, Peggy is the one who responded to my question and said we have collected data, and I apologize, I thought Peggy reported to you or was in your office. She said that you all had collected data that showed that the park was too wet and was therefore not in use. And when I asked Peggy, I didn't get a response.
Okay.
I will forward, you
Peggy's
will not
mistaken.
leave it all.
Peggy's mistaken. Has nothing to do with that. I'm not sure why Peggy would say something like that.
But again, just a procedural thing. This is not going to be a town hall meeting where we go back and forth. I mean, we're just not going to do that. So.
But
Please, go ahead and
so from where I sit in my chair, it has nothing to do with that at all. The second thing it has nothing to do with is the cost that it costs us to maintain that park. I sent that to Mr. Ambrosino, to John, and I said there was an option if you wanted to take over the maintenance of that park. That would be up to you. I wouldn't suggest it, but certainly that would be something that I think it was in the $4,000 range, probably a little bit more. In the big scheme of things, has zero to do with the cost. This is all driven by our core values of environmental stewardship, plain and simple. We are planting prairie grass in several different parks that routinely hold water, not only this year, but in previous years. The areas that these are going in, and you know where they are, I don't know why kids would want to play in that particular area of the two culverts, but I don't have kids in that area, but I've had kids. I live by the Kingly Basin. I've been here since 1984, so probably longer than most of you. So I understand what that picture is and what it's supposed to do, and I'm glad that your children play there and will continue to play there. But the fact of the matter is that when I was contacted, and you will see that a letter went out to 30 homes. Some of you in this room got this letter back in March, and we heard nothing from anybody. I think, obviously, you called us and talked to Peggy to find out what was going on. But that's the crux of why we're doing this. It has nothing to do with, we don't think kids are playing there. When we met with John back in June, there was a couple things we talked about, and normally I don't go out to these places. I let obviously the directors are tasked with that, but it sounded like this was an extremely important issue. Obviously tonight, I was right. We reduced that footprint from an acre to a half an acre. So 17% of that park is what's being taken up by prairie grass.
But it's all the flat area, right? It's all the flat area where people play. No, it's not.
No, that's not true, Richard. Again, I don't want to get into semantics about a detention basin versus a park. You guys use it as a park. We obviously use it as a park too, but the reason it's there, you've already experienced this. Many of you that went through the flood. And I was here as a policeman in '96, and I was in your neighborhood. Basically, I couldn't get to your neighborhood because it was underwater. So I get the whole concept. I get the whole concept. You're going to go to the next one, please. So this is what initially on our website we were going to plant. And that was going to be obviously a bigger portion of your park. And if you scroll down then, you get the before and after of what other parks have looked like. I have no idea or where the data, and I would be very interested to get data from you on where more coyotes will gravitate to your neighborhood because of these two small areas, and how it will create more insects for you. So, and I'm saying that not facetiously, I'm saying that honestly. Send it to me, because I'd like to see that. Keep going. No, go back. I call your attention to the bottom of the letter. This was sent March 6th. It was sent to 2 homes on Banyan Court, 15 homes on Buttonwood, 10 homes on River Road, and 5 homes on Sequoia Road. And I got the addresses here. And some of you, Mr. Mickelson confirmed that he did receive the letter back in March. It's water under the bridge now, it is what it is. But as far as trying to be transparent, I have been more than transparent as best I can with this, with press releases, with e-blast, Samara, I don't know what else we've done, different on this part than other ones. Is there anything else that we've done to notify the public?
Well, as far as the Park Mill project as a whole, we have a whole campaign around the letters, press release, signage in the parks. I mean, I can't verify whether the signage.
There's never a signage.
There was never a signage.
No way. No, there was not once. It was right across the street from the park. Not one time has there been a sign. I agree.
Well, we're happy to listen to all your comments. We're taking notes. We're not going to make this us against you. We're trying to work with you. We're trying to listen to you here, so let's not make this a second for you. Okay. Thanks.
Keep going. Go ahead. So that's the 2 sections now. How you cannot, somebody, I guess, called me shameful. I've been called a dictator. Because people are not going to be able to fly kites or do Easter egg hunts or recreate in that area. I don't know. I grew up as a kid outside of Chicago. It's a lot more area than I had to recreate with brick and mortar and concrete. I still think that your children will more than be able to recreate, but you have a different opinion. Keep going. Here's the bottom line. Staff recommends that we stay the course and plant the prairie grass. I understand that the community, some members of the community are unhappy. I've been contacted by other members in your community, one of which I believe sent you all an email, who doesn't believe, sees it differently than you all do. Again, I want to make sure that this is on the record. This has nothing, and I will speak with Peggy, it has nothing to do with lack of recreation. I don't know where those numbers are, and I'm the executive director, so I'd like to see them too. It has nothing to do with counting kids and that we don't see enough kids out there. We have 130-some parks. I mean, I couldn't be at every park to count how many kids are there. So I take your word that you're obviously using this. But from an environmental standpoint, I thought we had the photos of we've got a couple of days ago. Yeah. Kevin, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I was out there on Wednesday morning. This is the north area, which is still holding water. And if by chance that this was not in its current state, would be unable for us to mow probably for 2 to 3 weeks, at least based on my experience. Because our mowers are much, much heavier than one would use in the yard. And if you can see, at least from the perspective, I just don't see this as playable using turf. And I've been here for 14 years, and this area has been a continuing challenge.
Mr. President, I just have a point of order because Ray's mentioned it twice regarding recreation. 2 things. One, project manager mentioned it. That's why we brought it here today. And 2, the Park Meadows project, that initiative itself is in the overview, it says that there are 2 factors that lead an area to be part of it. One is it's too wet, and 2 that it's not used for recreation. That's what it says. And we're telling you that it's used for recreation, and Public Works has solved a lot of the wet issue. So just a point of order.
So I went out there today, spent a little time out there, took some pictures on my phone. The first thing that struck me as being a sports and recreation professional is those, Kevin, what is that, a grate? What do you call that thing?
That is the inlet, that is the intake.
Right, so I mean, from my observation, and I don't necessarily disagree with what some of these folks have said, so I haven't entirely made them in mind, but I certainly wouldn't want any of my kids or anybody playing like right in that area. I mean, that's an area where certainly an injury could occur. Now, there's kickball and frisbee and flag football and some of the things that, you know, you wouldn't, there's areas in the park where you want to do that, and there's areas in the park where you wouldn't want to do that, and this area is an area where you would not want somebody playing or running over that. I mean, again, the pictures I took on my phone, not only that one, but the other ones, it's pretty deep, and it's not an area that you want to be running around playing in. For my kids, I'd have them trying to play in the other parts of the park. So that, you know, that was just my observation. Any other commissioners? I know some of you guys went down there as well. Any other thoughts? Or, yeah, Bill?
My position is the same on other things. I look to how I was brought up as a kid. I was always told by my father and my grandfather, when you pay the bills, you get to make the decisions. These folks are paying the bills. They get to make the decisions. We cite surveys. We use surveys that were pick up the survey to dump money into the eatery. Whether people paid attention to the letter or paid attention now, that's certainly their right. They're here now. They're saying no. My position is plant seed on it, punt to the spring, and take a consensus of the neighborhood. We've punted other things, basketball courts and other things, because the neighborhood didn't want it. They want to play on that grass. They understand if we can't mow it because it gets wet, okay, so be it. Move on, put the grass seed back, and let the people have the park.
The grates also, excuse me, probably could use some refurbishing. And also, excuse me, I'm
This
just
will be
gonna
the
say
last.
that.
This will be the last comment.
This
We
last
can't,
one.
like I said before, we've been very respectful.
And I will
We can't
be-
go back and forth. Last comment from the group.
When they had the 96 flood, and they came and they dug this out deeper and made a higher berm to retain more water, I was told that there was some kind of a valve system or a switch system put in this park. And when we had the 100-year rains, this was held back from draining until the rest of the city started to drain out. And then all of a sudden, you could walk past this, you could be rowing a boat in there, and in less than 6 hours, the entire thing was drained because somebody hit the switch. Now, I'm under the understanding
Any other comments from the commissioners? Any other comments from the commissioners?
that there was a control here, and it's not
Thank you.
there. Okay.
Yeah, I also walk the park, and it's awesome that you guys do the park. We want you to use the park. I love parks. That's why I'm on the park board. Get out there and enjoy the park. I think in this area, though, it is a retention pond, and we want to make sure that
It's not. It's not.
It's not a area.
It's not.
It's not a retention area.
Detention.
Detention. I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm just, I do that. It's part of my nature. None of people do. So, but I want it to be safe for the kids. I want to be safe for our citizens and everything else. And when I went out there and looked at it, the ground was soaked. You know, if you're playing baseball out there, you twist your ankle, twist your knee. I just want you guys to all look at this and say, we're not going to make a decision tonight. We're going to talk about it. We love your input. That's what this whole thing's about. Thank you for your input. We'll take it back and when we disapprove, we'll talk about it. So thank you very much for coming out. And I'll go out there with you guys. There was tons of people out there last night playing in the park. Not in the area, not in the grass, but in the park area. So we know you use it. We want you. So thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, we can't go back and forth. I've made it very clear. I've made it very, very clear. I've made it very clear. respectful. We've been respectful over time. We gave her 3 minutes. We're not gonna go back and forth. I've made it very, very clear.
I know.
And we don't want, here, let me explain why. Let me explain why. We don't want to make this us against you. You guys are our residents. You're our taxpayers. We want to listen. We want to listen to you. We want to work with you. We don't want to work against you. And we don't want to turn this into us against you. We're very respectful. We listen to all your comments. The public comment part of the meeting is now over. What has to happen is us commissioners and staff, we need to talk about this openly amongst ourselves, which we're doing right now. And if we continue the back and forth, we're not going to be able to do that. So please allow us to do our work here so that we can work, because we're the body that has to make a decision on this, right? So you've said your piece. Let us talk amongst ourselves. That's how the meeting flows, and then we'll go from there. Is everybody good with that plan? Thank you. Okay. All right. Any other commissioner comments? Any other? Okay, hearing none. Ray, so what is the timeline on when we need to make a final decision? Where are we at here?
Well, I immediately when I got contacted by, I forget who I got contacted by, I stopped any further construction out there. So, you know, it could be next week, it could be 2 weeks. I mean, you know, there's no rush with this, but by the same token, I wouldn't want to postpone this for a month, sitting here trying to make a decision. Staff's decision is clear. I mean, that's why we brought this. That's why I put it on the discussion as opposed to manage the public, to give people more time to express their thoughts. I've heard them. I understand them. You know, at the end of the day, this is your park, but it's your community's park, not only yours. And you may not always get what you want. And I mean, the person who called me a dictator, I'm sorry about that. It's part of leadership. It's part of making tough decisions. This decision to me was not that difficult based on our core values and that area itself. If one of your kids with you hurt yourself on that grass, I guarantee you're going to contact him as our attorney due to unsafe conditions. You will absolutely do that. So understand my position as the executive director, plain and simple. I have several bosses here. And so I have to look at what's the greater good for the community as a whole.
There's never
Kevin, is there a way to, I mean, we've already reduced the scope of this. I mean, is there a way to further reduce the scope, or are we having to basically reduce the scope of this as tight as we can possibly reduce it?
Well, the entire benefit of this project is to try to reinforce is the cleaning of stormwater.
Right.
Which is something we have never even spoken about tonight. And the emphasis of this is to absorb pollutants that are in the actual stormwater that run off of the streets, the road salt, the asphalt runoff, the fertilizer, the phosphorus runoff is all absorbed by these plants. It's part of the bigger picture of what we are doing as an agency, what the Forest Service is doing, trying to filter this water prior to entering in the freshwater system of the DuPage River. I mean, that is why, in all essence, that we are doing this. To Ray's point, it's not to reduce expenses involved. It's not to take away a recreational portion of the park, but it's for the greater good.
And again, if we were to tighten it up, would that be, is your position, if we tighten it any further, then why bother, or?
I think it would minimize the impact.
Okay. All right, so what I'll ask is all the commissioners, if we can get all the commissioners to get over to that park, if you haven't already been there, check it out over the next couple of weeks, maybe go there a couple of times, and let's take this up for a decision. I don't want to say, let's take this up for a decision in a couple of weeks. Does that sound okay? Anybody disagree? Any commissioners disagree with that concept? Okay. All right. If you want to stay for the rest of the meeting that has nothing to do with this, you're more than welcome. If you want to go home to your families, you won't be offended. And sincerely, thank you so much for coming. We don't want to make this us against you. You're our residents, you're one of us. And I sincerely appreciate everybody's comments. Very, very helpful tonight. So thank you very much.
I just had a conversation with Dick Delinsky this morning. He was working on, there is water still sitting in the north part of the park by one of the drains. He's working to try to clear that out. So you might go there and it's a little soggier in that corner, and that's something he's working on. So just so you guys know. Thank you very much.
And then should we expect some type of update or like, can you just let us know, like?
Yeah, Ray will be in touch with the group.
You said 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks after. So yeah, let the process run its course. Bridget, do you have their contact information as well? All right, so we'll keep you apprised of what's going on. Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks for moving on.
Thank you.
Rich, you move up to the water.
Yes.
So that
Now we'll go to discussion item 6.3, moving it up, pull-up bars for patrons.
Just maybe give it a quick minute so Bridget. No, that's fine. We want to give you our undivided attention.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything really to say other than thank you for your support. I know they moved.
No, just give it 1 second.
Yeah, I can present it. I'll present it. And then you can for any questions, so you don't have to just.
I like talking.
I know you do.
Share information.
Hey, Eric.
Free on Saturday.
Is this a good view?
Yes, that's perfect. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, floor is yours. Sam, do you want to pick it off here?
Yeah, so just as an update, so Greg presented to us regarding his organization, Pull Bars for Patriots, at the workshop in June. Last Friday at the Parks and Rec Committee, we had a chance to discuss a possible location, actually our preferred recommendation for the Pull Bars for Patriots Memorial at Moser Tower Community Park. So at our last workshop, we discussed maybe a good location, a good park site for this, and talking with Greg, we identified Moser Tower would be a great fit in the new community park. And then where would it fit within the community park? And through conversations with Greg, we identified the new fitness challenge course. This would be nice, contiguous to it, but also having its own identity. And so it would have concrete curving around the edges. I would have the star and the surrounding area. Instead of porta-place rubber surfacing, we discussed the idea of protective synthetic turf. And that's the same type of material that would be utilized for the fitness challenge course planned for the site. So tonight, we just want to provide an update to the board, where we're at in the process. Greg's here to answer any questions. You also asked us at the workshop in June, how much would this cost all in? And so for the pull bars, the synthetic turf, this all-in cost, including a memorial plaque and a stone that will all be tied to it, the cost would come up to $19,957. I think the last time we met, you were somewhere in the neighborhood of over $20,000. Correct. So we were able to work on design and the cost, and I know there's interest from donors in the community that have an interest in supporting this project, as well as the Naperville Park District would split that at 50%. But we just wanted to present where we're at in the process and here to answer any questions you might have. As far as installation, if there's an interest by the board to proceed, we can incorporate this in the development of the park and will be built in early 2020 and be ready for the dedication and grand opening in the summer of 2020. So just an update, and we're here to answer any questions.
How do you feel about the location?
I feel it's awesome. The fact that it's going to be part of this park that has been in the works for a long time is definitely, I know that was a concern last time, that where should we put it to get the most bang for our most input from the community and the most people to use it, and to be showcased and be part of this huge project that Naperville's doing as a resident. Got some pride behind it. So, and then like Eric said, the initial where they were going to put, or where it was initially proposed, and then they just kind of slide it up and move it to where it is. I think it's great. And I know I need a little slight change, so I just can't thank everybody for just including us in the project. And thank you for your support.
Thank you for bringing that to us. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be a big addition.
Oh yeah, it's going to be exciting. Not to toot my own horn. This weekend we're actually having a big ceremony for the Wheaton Memorial, dedication celebration. We got Star Spangled Banner, National Anthem. So when this one opens, I expect the same thing, and possibly having some sort of motorcycle ride from one to the other, and just making the park, your grand opening, just even that much more special. So I'm just proud as an Naperville resident and our charity to be a part of this. So thank you.
Without your vision, it wouldn't have even been discussed on it, so thank you.
Well, vision from others, but yes, correct. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now move back to discussion item 6.1, 2019 mid-year review and 2020 budget preview.
That's okay. All right, we're going to just jump right in. Mid-year and 2020.
Okay, so this year's theme is prairie grass, so let's talk about, no. I'm gonna stand here because this is kind of awkward. We're gonna go through some highlights from 2019 and look ahead to 2020. Obviously, this is a very appropriate picture for everything that we're doing here in the district, and certainly the popularity of pickleball. But this is really the theme, and I think you'll see this come more and more, is where do we go from here? We as a park district are really starting to look more at, we've looked at this before, but now we're really putting it on paper as health span versus lifespan. It's one thing to live 80 years, 90 years, 100 years, but if they're 10, 20, or 30 of those years are really bad, I wouldn't say what's the point, because that's pretty cavalier, because it's not me. We're looking more at health span. What are we doing as a park district to increase from the time you're an infant to the time you're a senior, your health span, your participation in what we do as a district, and looking holistically at all the offerings to ensure that this message is in our facilities and events across all of our services. So that's more of the theme you're going to start to see from us now, is this health span. I think this is an awesome graphic that Samira found. I think it clearly illustrates who we are as a district and what we do. Other important considerations now for future relates to our staffing. It's no secret that all of us are taking pictures, and I think Commissioner Egan has sent us a couple, like the help wanted ones. We've been passing these around. We're a large community employer of youth. We are sometimes the first job a 15-year-old has, or a 16-year-old. So this is going to be an important idea that we analyze the forthcoming impacts of minimum wage. This is going to be ugly. Plain and simple. There's no other way to say this. This is going to be ugly. And the impact that it's going to have on us is understand that we're compression, where people starting at a pay that's greater than some of the people that are already here. That's going to be an issue that I understand Springfield. I don't necessarily disagree, and I think staff would agree that the minimum wage certainly should have probably been changed. But the impact that it's going to have on the compression issues, I think the compression is going to be bigger than the minimum wage itself. And Sue, what was the number that we quoted over 5 years? Could be upwards of
Well, the worst case is it was close to $1 million.
close to $1 million, worst case scenario, 5 years. So that's worst case scenario. Adding to this is the ongoing recruitment and the retention challenges. And then finally, consistent with our strategic plan, something that we spoke about last week at the Park and Recs Committee, is the creation of the Citizens Advisory Team. This will be, it's not going to be a futures committee like we had before. The formulation of a cross-section of citizens from Naperville. What we would ask from you, and we will bring our ideas to you, is to bless the mission of what this committee is going to do. You know, helping us navigate this, where do we go from here? We have a lot of challenges. It's no secret that the facility next door to us is for sale. It's no secret that likely that facility is going to sell and displace indoor soccer for us potentially. It's no secret, and it's actually, you know, a great thing that the building we're in right now, we're built out with this new addition. We continue to add people here. Again, a wonderful thing. But we continue to play catch up. My 11 years here, I wish a lot of this would have been done previous, and it just wasn't for a number of different reasons. So we are continuously now just playing catch up. And I said this to you back in 2013 when we came up with Egan's Acres, that we're standing out here, and then built this and opened this in 2016. I said, this does not solve the problem. This addresses some of the problems. So moving forward, I'm not standing here today and advocating for a new building. I'm not advocating for a referendum. I'm telling you that staff is looking at this long and hard because we're not going to stick our head in the sand and hope that the problem goes away. The private sector may come in, maybe they can solve some of it, maybe they can't. But at the end of the day, our mission is to provide those healthy services for our community. The major goals, again, the Fort Hill expansion, the 95th Street Community Plaza, Wolf's Crossing, Mac Park redevelopment, and the development of a comprehensive plan to address staff recruiting and retention. That's continuous. That's just a continuous cycle that we try to hold on to the people that we have, and so they go out and try to grab some of the people that we need for certain positions.
So in this next portion of the presentation, we're going to look at really the first part of 2019 and hit on some of the highlights. Within recreation, a lot of that is the performance of our facilities, our programs, where we stand today in 2019. The recreation department, just as a reminder, includes all the different facilities and programs that you see on the screen there. And when we look at our overall revenue for recreation as a whole, we're about 2% below year-to-date budget. A lot of that has to do with, and you'll see, our weather-dependent facilities, such as Centennial Beach, such as our paddleboats, sportsman song, are behind as far as the revenue generation year-to-date budget. But when we look back at 2018 and where we were at this point in time, we're actually up 2% with our revenue. Our net at this point is also ahead of budget by 29%, but a lot of that can sometimes depend upon some of the timing of different expenses for some of the contractual providers, so on. So certainly it's something that we monitor on a month-to-month basis and will continue to do so. When we look at programs, compared to 2018, our overall program revenue is up 2%. We've seen some nice increases in some of our program areas. Our net is ahead of budget by about 12% at this point in time through July. Program participation, when you see that you see revenues up but participation is down, we've seen participation increase in some of our higher price programs, our camp programs, but we're down 4% or 1,700 in the first 3 seasons. A majority of that has to do with Magical Starlight Theater. The performance that was held this past winter, Tarzan, performed below Little Mermaid that took place in 2018. And if you look back at the weekends that the performances took place, we had snowstorms that had a very big impact on tickets. So nearly 1,400 of that registration totals being down is actually due to ticket sales with the theater. Examples of programs that are performing ahead at this point: youth basketball, which I'll touch on a little bit more as we get further in. Kids First sports camps and our indoor swim classes and dance are doing well. Another area where we continue to see growth every year is in the fee assistance program. We're already at 85% of our budget this year. We had actually increased the budget this year for the fee assistance program over last year. On average, we're at about 80%. So that is something that we continue to see growth in, and by the time we get to the end of the year, we will most likely be close to about $50,000 that the district is issuing in fee assistance for those in financial need to take programs. Fort Hill Activity Center is performing extremely well, continues to perform extremely well. Over the past year, we have nearly 900 new fitness members that joined the facility. Our revenue is ahead of budget by about 22% and over 2018 revenue by 12% at this point in time. Our net, when we look at it, again, ahead of budget by about 60% and ahead of 2018, 19%. We're excited about the addition of Studio D opening. That's certainly going to provide greater flexibility within this facility to accommodate more programs. The multi-purpose room spaces that we're in right now, we will actually be able to move the group exercise classes out of this space, free this up for other programming, for meeting space rentals, etc., and be able to put that into a space that's really conducive to what they look to do. Our overall memberships, when you look at the entire total, taking into account the walk, jog, open gyms, we're at almost 9,000 members with this facility at this point. And one of the things I want to point out is we have a very large number of seniors that are using this facility. And one of the initial goals of this facility was to provide a space that really those of all ages can come and participate in, but seniors would be able to take part in. When we first opened, about 21% of our memberships were with seniors. We're now at 32% of our fitness memberships are actually senior memberships. The charts here just provide examples of the usage that we see. We track usage in each of these 4 core areas within Fort Hill on a monthly basis. You'll see that pretty much in each area we continue to see that growth with overall participation within group exercise, fitness, open gyms. You'll see a significant difference with track. And if you look at November of 2018, we actually completed a project here where we added a control point. We added doors to the track that requires members to now scan to open the door to access the track. Provides us with much better data, provides us, one, with better control of that point, but much better data as far as track usage. So that is something that we'll continue to track. You see that see the jump there that started in November of 2018. This facility, we've had nearly 6,300 participants that registered for programs here. That doesn't include all the participations within group exercise and some of the other classes. Gymnastics continues to represent the largest portion at about 47% of the overall registrations for the first 3 seasons, nearly 3,000. Naperville Youth Basketball, that's our second largest program that utilizes this facility. We rely upon the school districts and the gymnasiums that they have for the practice space here in the week, but the games are played here at Fort Hill. This past winter, we had 869 participants in the Winter League. We had 153 listed. We've been working with the school districts trying to gain more gymnasium space. We were fortunate to pick up some gyms. We moved some programs around to open up some additional spots for this fall. Last fall, we were at 690 participants. Right now, we're projecting to hit we're going to be close to, we believe, 900 participants for the fall of 2020. So certainly a lot of interest in that program, and we'll continue to grow that as we can. With our revenue, with our weather-dependent facilities, we'll start with Riverwalk Cafe, paddleboats, and sportsmen's. Overall sales are down at the cafe. That's a combination of weather in June and the fact that we also waited until Memorial Day to open this year versus opening earlier in the spring. We found that the earlier dates in the spring just were not producing what we needed for covering the expenses there. But our overall expenses at this point are down 20%. Through July, very similar to last year, we're at a break even, and we've got a net income for the year that we anticipate hitting at $2,100. Paddleboat and kayak rentals, revenue is down there as well, 2%, but our expenses are also down there through some of the adjustments that we made with staffing at that facility. So in each case, we're always looking at expenses as we work through the year, and we see that revenue is down in areas we work to control expenses. And Sportsman's Park trap shooting, not only were they impacted, or that program impacted by the rains that we had in the spring, but that's a year-round program. And everyone can remember that we're coming off a pretty harsh winter with the polar vortex and the cold temperatures that we had. So that had an impact there. Again, expenses are reflected as far as if we're down in revenue, the expenses are also down for that program. Centennial Beach, through July, overall attendance was below 2018 by 90%. Our revenue was below 18 by about 1%. We do a lot of comparisons, really looking at that 3-year average for these facilities. So that third bullet point is something that we look at even more so than the year prior. When we look at the 3-year average, we were down 15% with visitors and down 3% in revenue. That's actually considerably better than where we were at the end of June. End of June, our visitors were down 37% compared to the average, and our revenue was down considerably more as well. July was a good month for us. You'll see the difference between the 15 and the 3%. We did implement that increase in the daily admission fee in 2019. Our overall revenue for memberships and daily admissions is at 72% of budget through July. Typically, we're at about 83%. But our total labor expenses were at 66% of budget, which labor is our most costly line item within Centennial Beach. So we are not spending as much as what we had anticipated. And the next couple slides just show just where we're at through July. When we look back to 2011, 2011 is when we had completed the renovations at Centennial Beach. So that includes Centennial Grill actually opening, food and beverage being with the Park District. You can see that attendance-wise, this is about the second lowest year since 2013. But revenue, we have picked up some additional revenue with the admissions. I will also say that the work that Sam and her team and Jackie and the beach staff did with implementing the mid-season 50% off we did for the memberships, as well as the membership sale that we did in June. Actually, that is a large number of memberships, over 800 memberships were sold during those two sales to really bring us back. And then lastly, for recreation, just showing, again, we, for a number of years, were tracking and reporting out a little bit earlier, so we had selected the July 21st date that we were doing comparisons against. When you look at this, we look at above average temperatures, days of recorded rain, as well as above 90 degrees for the beach operations. You'll see this year, 2019, through July 21st, we had 32 days of rain, which is recorded rain. Second highest that we've got reported on that chart since 2011. But we also found that during the month of July, we actually had a number of 90 days. But this, when you compare these charts, directly correlate to what we see with attendance at that facility.
Golf for 2019 is fairly consistent with what Brad was saying, the impacts of being an outdoor area. Year to date, our overall revenues are down 5%, just slightly over 124K. But we also do have some very good things to report. Our online sales have totaled 85K, and that's ever since November, so that's a huge increase for us. And also our program revenue just continues to grow, especially in our junior areas. As example, we did have 100 children that attended our first ever Golf Palooza in April, where we gave away hot dogs and we gave tips on the range for the youngsters to enjoy. And also a very good thing to report is our range at Springbrook is up 11% over 2018. And this is just the same information. We actually are down the 5% or 124K, but we're actually up in total revenue, similar to Brad's areas, by just over 62K from 2018.
Okay, as many of you remember, in 2018 we had a penetration test that was performed on our network, and as part of that test, they modeled 5 of the most common ways to get into a network, and it was deemed that the largest vulnerability that we had was email. And that's from that point forward, we invested a lot in technology and into infrastructure that would help us stay more secure when it comes to that. Some of that is the phishing training, which you guys, for the most part, always pass, and that's good to see. But that's the #1 way that organizations like us are being compromised. We also started through this process the anti-spoofing spam filter that now doesn't allow someone to try to impersonate you guys. That is very, very, very prolific, especially because of our email addresses being on the website. We are in the tail end of migrating over to Windows 10. It's been a very arduous process because we have to make sure that things are backwards compatible, forwards compatible, in the sense that all our applications work. To give you an idea, we have over 175 pieces of individual software. So there's a lot of things that, moving parts go into that. Not everyone uses 175 pieces of software. It's like, this department has 5, this department has 4, and that's how you get to that number. We also installed the unmanned rage token at Naperville. Last year we did Springbrook. This year we did Naperville. Why that's important is because we went through the process of combining both databases from both golf courses. So you could go buy a range token or the ticket from one course and use it at another, or vice versa. We've also been putting a lot of time and effort into the big data framework, which you'll see, and of course, never fails the PC and server replacements.
Okay, it's been a busy year. We started the year off with a Moser Tower with the job fair that we collaborated with Kids Matter on. This was a big change for both of our organizations in that we had hosted our own the 2 years prior. And Kids Matter had always hosted theirs just prior to spring break. And that timing did not work well with our hiring cycles. We had really good turnout both from employers, potential employers, and attendees. So we are looking to do that again in 2020. We implemented a nationwide background check process. The Illinois Park Code requires at a minimum checking the Illinois State Police, so we have been doing that. We're in compliance with that, but we expanded the process to look nationwide now with all of the different stories in the news and things even happening right next door in Aurora. It made sense to do that. We're not only looking to protect our patrons and the youth, but also our staff, and want to make good hires and use that information for that purpose. We're actually just begun the implementation of a new module to help with the onboarding process. The intention there is that it's going to get rid of some of the paper that's part of bringing on an employee that's new and also is a retired. And we'll really be able to monitor where people are at in the process and keep up with them, and managers will be able to do that as well. We're serving as a pilot for the Federal Loss Control Review. And a loss control review is what the government uses to assess the members' risk management policies, procedures, and practices. And they've been changing how they're doing that assessment, so we're being one of the test agencies for them. And additionally, I'm personally serving on the Federal Loss Control Review Subcommittee. So we're participating on a couple different fronts there. We're in the process of doing a compensation program analysis, doing a study of our positions. Scaled it back from what we've done in previous studies. We're looking at how positions that are new, since we did the last study, to make sure that they are in the right salary ranges. We're looking at some positions that have been more difficult to recruit for. And then also we're taking a look at positions that have changed significantly since last time we did this study. So we started those meetings today, and the process is going along really well. We've also put in a couple part-time positions that have been hired for as well. And then minimum wage. It's something that we started planning for as part of the budget process. Sue and I have had a lot of conversations about it and provided a basic framework for our managers as they're building their short-term wage budgets to accommodate not only those staff or positions that we're going to need to move to minimum wage, but also to address those compression issues. You all see the helpline signs, the posting when you go into Target. Target's starting people $12 an hour. Just because minimum wage is moving up to $10 an hour, over the course of next year, we may not be able to bring people in at minimum wage. So we're going to be using that tool to help them out. So that's it for 2019.
All right, so looking at 2019 for the marketing department, between late November last year and early May this year, we successfully onboarded 2 new designers. And probably not surprising, marketing needs good designers. So we now have in place 2 very effective, talented people. And being able to have a great publications designer in Carol has led us to be able to overhaul the program guide development process. And for 10, 12, 14 years, however long it's been, we have outsourced that production process. And we have a third-party designer who is completing the vast majority of that design work. What we've been able to do, having the right people in place, is bring that process completely in-house. And that's afforded us a lot of advantages. Not only has it saved us money, it's also brought in efficiencies as far as being able to collapse that design process. It's helped staff to be able to adhere to deadlines that are a little bit more forgiving and not quite as stringent, so that's been a definite process improvement. We're currently in the process of redesigning the program guide for winter 2020. We've done little tweaks incrementally, but now this is going to be kind of that last overhaul in a program guide cover. Instead of just promoting one thing, which is always hard to pick a season, and we've got all these different programs, but what's going to go on the cover, this is going to give us an opportunity to promote more than one thing and be able to speak to several demographics at one time, passive and active recreation, and be able to show some more variety, which I think will be an advantage for us. I don't know how familiar you are with this, but we've got the program guide, we've got the senior program guide, and then we have the activities and events multi-page newsletter, and that's something that we've produced for several years. We felt that it was effective, but it's sort of run its course. It was a repackaging of the events information from the program guide and just with a new cover and given to people at our various events that we would get in the community. People liked it, but it wasn't necessarily all that portable, and it kind of fell in line with the program guide where we just probably sit in a pile on the counter. What we've done is reduced all that paper, and again, talking about efficiencies, we are producing now a double-sided panel card that will highlight all of our events for a given season, and that will now be in the program guide starting in winter 2020 as a double-sided cardstock panel card that will be perforated. You can tear it out, put it on your fridge, and it's going to serve as a really easy and nice reference piece throughout the season. And then finally, we planned and hosted several successful groundbreaking events. We had one at, as you know, 95th Street, Wolves Crossing, and then ribbon cutting celebrations at Heatherstone and Meadows Parks.
Well, for parks, we don't want to keep saying this, but heavy rains did impact us and Bransky, especially for field use in April, May, and June. Part-time staffing has improved in 2019, but it is still a challenge. It's for the few people that are out there willing, there's a lot of competition. And as a result of our springtime rain or overtime budget did run higher than expected, but we are starting to curtail it. And another point where we talked about tonight here is natural area restoration projects continue, as well as shoreline stabilization and park meadow projects, which is consistent with our core values of environmental education, stewardship, and sustainability. And the last point is our Sustainable Parks initiative is continuing, and it's doing well, and it's going to remain at its current level.
As part of the mid-year budget review process, departmental staff prepared projections for capital budget items, looking at the top tier, which are 8 projects, what we like to call the on-deck circle projects or B projects, IT capital, allowances, and debt service. Projected where we're at right now to come in below the budget amount of $1.4 million, and that's of a capital budget just slightly over $17 million. Of the $1.4 billion, approximately 1.1 of that is based on construction schedules as it relates to Wolves Crossing Community Park, as well as 95th Street Community Plaza. So once we factor that out, the net is an estimate of $300,000 under budget. That's where we're at right now.
Okay, we're gonna leap into 2020 now, give you a little bit of a preview, and we'll start with the budget calendar. And you will be getting this through legally packets and schedules. But where we are tonight is doing our mid-year review. In October, we'll be coming to all the committees with our typical highlight of items, providing you a little bit more detail in preparation for a workshop, which we currently have set aside November 12th. If you could all please, that's Tuesday, November 12th, check your calendars. That is a date that is not set. And let Bridget know, I don't know, what's a good time frame for you guys? A couple weeks or within maybe 2 weeks? Let her know at that date if there's any conflict so we can reschedule if we need to. We'd be approving our tax levy resolution at our one meeting we have in November, a couple days after the workshop, and then December 12th would be approval of the appropriation ordinance and tax levy ordinance. So similar to last year's schedule.
Just looking at the goals here, the 91st Street Community Plaza Development, the Knock Park redevelopment, Wolves Crossing Community Park site development, and then some of the key renovations at several of our different parks here.
Okay, and I'm just going to do one quick overview because property tax is so important. It's over half of our revenues. Where we are now with our estimates of what we're looking for. This is going to be very similar to what you heard when we put the 3-year plan together. We haven't had any changes since that time. On average, a homeowner pays about $368 or so, plus or minus 5, typically each way, in 2019, so for this year. For next year's levy, we're assuming an increase of 4% in EAV. We are, even with taking the 1.9 CPI for operations, we're still expecting a tax decrease to homeowners of about $10. And the primary reason for that, and we've talked about the Wesdra levy or the 4-cent levy we have for special recreation. So based on our plan, Eric puts together, we have an actual 3-year plan. In the next upcoming years, unless something unforeseen happens and we're putting a building up, next week, we expect that those plan improvements to decrease. So where we typically have levied 4 cents of EAV, we're estimating about 2.5 or 2.6 cents of EAV for that. Of that whole amount of 2 cents is our due to Wesdra. So those are just membership dues. So there'd be a small piece that we'd be levying for capital improvements that are ADA related under that.
Okay, looking ahead to 2020 for the HR department, as mentioned, minimum wage and compression. This will continue to be a theme throughout not only 2020, but also over the course of the entire implementation of the minimum wage increase, which goes through 2025, when it finally gets to the highest level, which is $15 per hour. We anticipate with the tool that Sue and I worked on, that not only is it going to give us good information for budgeting purposes for 2020, but it's going to give us the opportunity to better forecast further out throughout that entire 5-year implementation. Recruiting, it's going to be a large focus again, trying to get in front of the target audience, and then once we get them, making them understand, hey, we are a good place to be. They like the culture, the benefits. One of the challenges for recruitment will be the fact that recreational marijuana legislation goes into effect. We're going to have to decide how we're going to approach that, and then we've had issues already with custodial mostly, where when you do get applicants, a lot of them cannot pass our drug screening process. So I anticipate, because a lot of people don't really seem to understand the legislation, they think it's much broader than it is, that may impact our ability to attract and actually end up hiring individuals. And then also part of the 2020 process, we'll be looking at the results of the compensation study and then implementation. I don't anticipate it's going to be a 1-year implementation, but have a plan.
One quick thing, I know I mentioned this at previous meetings, like the whole hiring thing that everybody's talking about. I still think there's so many things within the park district that we can take advantage of. I mean, fitness memberships, golf. I mean, are there perks that we can start putting out there that we're not already putting out there? I mean, we're going to have to solve this problem thinking creatively. I think everyone wage. We've got a fitness center here that we can offer memberships or discounted memberships to. My mom worked at Kohl's for 25 years. She hates Kohl's, she hates the job. Why does she work there? Because the employee discount. It's a fact, I mean, it's a fact. So, I mean, if it's not gonna be the money that's gonna get people, because you can work at Target for cheaper, there's gotta be other carrots that we can put out there from a benefit standpoint, and I don't know the protocols or what other park districts are doing, but, we gotta take advantage of the assets that we have, within our disposal, and maybe we gotta start getting real creative about that. So I don't know what that would take, if there's a committee that's gotta kick it around, or if you want to.
We already do that.
But I mean, more so. I mean, I don't think there's people out there that, hey, I'm gonna get a job at the park district because, I mean, I think there may be more than we do.
Maybe we started pulling that information actually into the job postings as
Yeah.
well. So really putting it out there right from the get-go.
Just something to kick around with your department, because maybe there's more that we can do to offer, to make ourselves more of an employer of choice.
Maybe we get the legislative committee to start work on getting law enforcement here for part-time.
Just something to kick around.
It's a 14 months to start working. You can't hire 15, right? It's the lowest.
14 and 15 with a work
Well, obviously very restricted on what those 14-year-olds can do. Can't come out more.
What if we could?
So looking ahead for next year, a few of the items that we will be looking at as we put the budget together. Initiating limited programming at Wolves Crossing and 95th Street. And I say limited because there will be a time when the park still needs to grow in. Athletic fields will not be ready yet, they will still be growing in. But certainly opportunities to get renting pavilion and some of the other areas at the facility that we can program. Begin programming of the Knock Park Phase 2 project, that partnership that we're working on with School District 203. Based on the schedule, that will be available to begin programming in the fall of 2020. So keeping that in mind as we put the budget together. Continuing to identify opportunities to reduce wait lists in our popular programs. I mentioned before about continuing to work with the school districts, and we've been fortunate to gain some additional gym space this year to account for some of the wait lists in basketball. We will continue to work in those areas to do what we can. Adjusting the part-time wages that come for minimum wage requirements and compression. A lot of our instructors, day camp counselors, staff at Centennial Beach, so on. It impacts just about every area within recreation that we have to offer. And with that, and as we look at the additional expenses that come with that, evaluating changes to program and facility fees as a result of the increased operational costs that are anticipated with the budget. So that is something that we will certainly be looking at as we're putting this together for 2020.
And for 2020, we will be taking on 3 rather large developments. We're going to have 95th Street Plaza, Wolves Crossing, and the development at Knock Park. What this translates to, we will be requesting 2 new full-time positions, 1 9-month position, and the balance of the hours needed will be placed towards seasonal budgets. And of course, we will be requesting the additional dollars for supplies and materials. And again, seasonal wages in 2020 will be impacted by the minimum wage, not so much for us in parks, but the compression.
All right, looking ahead for 2020, we are going to be requesting a reclassification of a current 35-hour-a-week PC help desk position to full-time, so that would be adding the additional 5 hours per week. We've historically had this position. We hired 2 part-time people. We've tried a lot of different schedules. We've tried a lot of, Katie can attest, a lot of different ways that we formatted this position. And in the long term for retention and just overall the ability to service our facilities that we have open just about, from sun up to sundown, sometimes 10 o'clock. We have police officers that don't get off till midnight. This just allows us to have the best coverage of IT for everything. We're also going to be doing some server replacements. We're going to be doing the core switching replacement at admin. That's our main hub. We're going to be replacing the core citron equipment at this building. Of course, performing some PC replacements. For the copier, we're going to be consolidating 2 copiers into one. That kind of just ended up after all the moves that we did from buildings to buildings, and now they're both at a place to where we can consolidate 2 to 1. And the plotter replacement, we call that the marketing planning plotter, because they both use them for different purposes, and we're going to be replacing that. And of course, the continued mobile app development.
And looking at the 2020 for golf, the minimum wage will get again, in clubhouse staff, player assistance card staff, food and beverage and cashier. Majority of these people are below $10. But we will hopefully try to offset some of that by $1 increase in these fees. That's the plan for now. In 2020, we'll also kick off our capital improvement program on the courses. We will be renovating the practice area range at Naperville Park in 2020. And then we will also start working on the design and bid packages to go out late 2020 for the sprinkler course work in 2020.
All right, so marketing always has a lot of fun things going on in the pipeline. For 2020, we're going to be working on improving our search engine optimization across our websites, also known as SEO. Some of you might be familiar with that. Basically, it's making sure that we've got the right kind of content on our website, descriptive content that will generate good page views and have us higher in the rankings when people are searching for things like gymnastics, Naperville gymnastics, things of that nature. So hopefully getting us up higher in the rankings for all the different things that we offer. We are going to be addressing our existing video inventory and developing a repository and a better way of managing all the different video pieces we have, and then also having a way of using them more effectively for promotions of our various programs. We've taken quite a bit of video. NCTV's done a lot of great packages for us on our various activities. We're currently putting those on the website, but I want more of a strategy around how we're doing that and then how we're propagating that information out to help promote our programs. We're going to be, now that 2020 is going to be the 3rd year that we're going to be working on our Park Talk podcast, it's time for a little bit of a refresher in the graphics that we use to promote it, and also the intro and outro for our various episodes. And then finally, we are going to have several ribbon cuttings next year. We're going to have the one at JC's Playground, 95th Street Community Plaza, Wolf's Crossing Community Park, and several neighborhood playgrounds as well. So it always takes a lot of planning and effort as far as getting the community together and celebrating those great projects.
Okay, that concludes our mid-year overview and a preview for 2020. So we look forward to getting into it and bringing you a good budget.
Bill?
Fran, in your original presentation, you were up to 94 or something.
Can't hear you.
Mentioned that some invoices from other vendors, from third parties, and you have to account for on that number.
Some of that, the comparison was against the Tuesday budget, and some of that has to do with some of the timing of invoicing from some of the contractors. So whether that be Showdown, which are some of the larger invoices, busing for the sheer forward day camps, you know, the invoices we received for busing and payments are earlier. So that's where some of that increase is.
And with regards to the eatery, you're about break even, but that doesn't include an allocation for the build out a couple of years ago, right? That's straight revenue expense.
That's revenue expense for operations.
Any other questions, comments? We really couldn't hear those questions.
Yeah, no idea what.
Sorry, my voice is going. So my one question was, he had made a comment in the 294,000 or whatever, he said it was year over year, he said that they can account for some invoices, but it's a timing issue between the year-to-year comparison. So, but it may shift depending on the timing. My second question was with regard to the eatery, he said it was about break even. I wanted to make sure that didn't include an allocation from the build out that we did a couple of years ago that was straight revenue expense.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, very well done, thank you. Then move on to the non-tax revenue plan.
Yes, so hopefully you all have had a chance to take a look at it. It was in the weekly packet. This evening, it's just open if you have any questions. This is a plan we do every 3 to 5 years. Really takes, part of the plan takes a historical look at where we've been 2014 through our budget of 19 of what we consider non-tax revenues, which is pretty much everything other than property tax, and we don't consider that as revenue. So the largest category that we feature in here are obviously our charges for services, which on our total scale represents about 22% of our revenue budget for the year for the district. So there's graphs in here. If you have any questions, we did not plan to go through this tonight, but just wanted to open it up to you. And then if there aren't any questions, we would be approving it or we'd be accepting it at the next meeting, September 12th. And there's also objectives on the very last page that we all take a look at. Obviously, it's really important that we try and continue to develop our non-tax revenues. It's a priority for all of us. I think it was even a strategic initiative to work on, making sure that we're doing all that we can to help offset the tax burden.
My only comment is one that maybe for Stacy's time, instead of going after these restaurants for $200-300, spending your time going after big fish, bigger dollars, more work towards bigger dollars instead of these really small amounts. It's too much bandwidth, too much time and effort for $250, $300. It's hardly worth our time doing that.
I do appreciate the 3 reads versus the other 2. Thank you.
So if there's no questions, then you'll see this on the next agenda for acceptance. Thank you.
Then we'll move on to item 6.4, intergovernmental agreement with School District 203.
Yeah, in the weekly packet last week, I provided the board with a draft of the intergovernmental agreement for the Naperville Park Phase 2 project, which includes the development of the synthetic turf field, pickleball courts, as well as trails and support amenities at Naperville Park in 2020. This is something we've been working with School District 203 staff on putting together. The intent is that the school district will bring the draft IGA to their board for discussion in early September. And the thought is then at their next meeting in September they would approve it. Wanted to just hit some of the highlights tonight and then see if there were any questions from the board with the intent then to bring it to the next meeting for your consideration. Overall, the IGA, it outlines the responsibilities of both organizations. The Park District, with it being on our property, we would be responsible for the construction, administering the construction, the various contracts that are associated with that. But we would seek throughout the duration of the project reimbursement from School District 203 for their portion of the project. It is set up as a 57%, 43% split between the Park District and the School District. The School District will pay 43%, Park District 57%. We would pay 100% of the cost for the pickleball courts and the pickleball lighting. That's something that the School District does not see a need for, but they would certainly then pay for the other support amenities and for the synthetic turf field. Again, that would we would seek reimbursement throughout the duration of the project to receive reimbursements there. And the percentages are based on preliminary schedule, looking at peak usage times for the field and when the school district would be scheduled for their activities versus Park District and community activities would be scheduled on the field. That's how those percentages were developed. Park District will complete all the maintenance. We will complete the administration, the scheduling of the field. We will rent the field, much like we do with the other synthetic turf fields within the system. The Park District then, we will retain the revenues from the rentals, and we will use those revenues to offset the costs associated with the maintenance, the administration, and the utilities for the field. If there is additional funds left over at the end of the year, then those funds will be, again, retained by the district for future capital improvements. If the funds do not, or the rental revenues do not cover the costs associated with the administration, maintenance, utilities, then the Park District and School District, we would then split that cost based upon usage for it. And then just the last one I want to highlight is the term of the agreement. It would be an initial term of 15 years.
take us really through 2035, where neither party would be able to terminate the agreement. After that, it would renew annually until one party gave the other party 2 years' notice of termination. So, with that, wanted to open it up for any questions. Otherwise, like I said, we would look to bring this to the next meeting for your consideration.
Brad, I think Marie says this question before, you might have said this too, or answered this question.
Yep.
But for the pickleball courts, if the school decides to use those pickleball courts, is there any way to recapture the construction fees associated with maintenance of those fees?
I think that's something we could revisit with the school district. If after built, if they decided that they wanted to utilize those courts, that we could certainly sit with them and have that discussion.
I think at some point when it's built, they probably will play.
That's what you have, it's question of when.
Yeah.
At this point in time, just based on the conversations with their staff, they don't have that interest. But yeah, we can certainly.
Well, as soon as they show up to schedule it.
Right.
Yeah.
Does it be in that governmental agreement?
We have a scheduling agreement with them, so we get costs from them whenever they schedule any of our facilities, and that changes from time to time. So if they start having more or club sport or something else, when they come in to charge it, to use it schedule, A, they get priority, B, opportunity.
Okay. So I think at some point they're. Exactly.
Just the cost fluctuation changes when we add chances, right, it's talking about for basketball.
Yeah.
They would add facilities and so.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you. The Knock Park ball fields.
Yes, included in the 2019 capital budget is the Naperville Park Ball Fields Improvement Project that involves the fields of number 2 and 5, which are located on the south side of Naperville Park, so it has nothing to do with both sides. That's per field. And the agreement that Brad just presented to the board. This is a long planned project in discussion with the Parks Department for drainage improvements at fields 2 and 5, and we intend to bring a contract to the board for consideration either in September or October. It's planned for fall work and completed this year, so just a small drainage improvement project, but we want you to be aware because we will be bringing a contract to you for consideration.
And that work will be done this year?
Yes.
When is that scheduled?
It's probably gonna be done in like October, November, later in the year. So obviously, when it's not going to be used this, after the summer season, we get contracts ready for the board for consideration, probably for approval September, October. So we're probably done in October, early November, and then it's just drainage work, and then we're ready to go for the spring of 2020 ball field season.
Yeah, but I know those fields are used for practices and stuff.
Yeah, I believe it's going to be more in the infield areas. Is that correct, Kevin?
On both fields, yeah.
So the outfields will be available, or the turf will be available.
So there's not a lot of turf work, it's mainly the infield at Knock, and then we have several other smaller projects throughout the district.
All right, thank you. Program guide, printing, bid opening results.
Yes, thank you. So we held the bid opening for the printing of the program guide on August 13th. And I'm teeing this up for the board because I will be bringing the contract for approval to the board meeting on September 12th. And I just wanted to make everyone aware of the end result of the bid opening. So we only had 2 bidders. Our current printer, who resides in Wisconsin, and another one that's located in Warrenville, Illinois. For 2013, just by sake of comparison, we had 7 bidders, and in 2016, we had 9 bidders. Now, it's important to note that the specs of the program guide have changed, and every time the printing gets a little bit more sophisticated, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to now have the inserted panel card, double-sided, perforated. It just seems like every time we added something else, it really eliminates some of the other printers just based on their equipment or abilities or so on and so forth. So the current printer was the lowest bidder by $24,000. We had 3 printers that responded. We actually sent the bids out to, in addition to putting the ad in the paper per requirements, we sent the bid to 81 printers on our print list. So that's pretty extensive as far as that's concerned. 3 responded right reduce the job due to equipment or otherwise. We also reached out to 12 additional bidders on the list that we hadn't heard from, just to find out why they didn't submit bids. And we ended up hearing back from 7 of the 12, and again, it was the same kind of thing. The job was too large, don't have the right equipment to be competitive, or doesn't fit their capabilities. So I just wanted to make the board aware that that's where we are right now. That's where we're at.
This is not an agenda item, so I'll try to be brief. I just want to congratulate Kevin and his team on the Parks Department report that was in our packet. I mean, it was only 52 pages long, but there's a lot of stuff in it, most of which I did not understand a word of. But it's comforting that you know what I'm talking about. But I do have one suggestion. If there was an executive summary that would kind of distill it down into somewhat layman terms, that would be helpful. But I didn't want to include my fellow commissioners. Stay for myself. But
Happy to work, I think.
But thank you. I mean, it was very comprehensive.
Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, future meetings. The next regular meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners will be September 12th, 2019 at 7 p.m. at the Naperville Municipal Center Council Chambers, 400 South Eagle Street. Just a reminder to all, the September 26th meeting has been canceled due to commissioners attending the national conference. So the meeting subsequent will be October 10th, 2019, 7 p.m. back at Council Chambers, 400 South Eagle Street. And now we'll move on to executive session.
And to move to adjourn to executive session, discuss items under section 2C5, 2C8, and 2C12 of the Open Meetings Act.
Second.
Any discussion? Bridget, please take the roll.
Vice President King?
Yes.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Riley?
Yes.
President Janet?
Yes.
Sorry.